Here we are, back, show and teller. And I have to say this. I say this every episode, but for real this time. I have probably one of the coolest guests ever on this show. And I don't mean that lightly. I have Kevin Nahai. He has a podcast called Nobody Listens to Kevin. He is a glorified, incredible relationship and dating coach here in Los Angeles, California. He gives some incredible advice. I am enthralled by him. Whenever I see him on his Instagram reels, I'm just like, I got to have this guy on my podcast. And you know what? I texted him and he's like, Rabbi, it would be my pleasure to have you on the show. And my heart just dropped. I'm like, yes, here we are. Kevin Nahai, finally. And without further ado, I'd like to have Kevin say hi to everybody.
Thank you so much, Rabbi T. Thank you for the kind introduction.
I really appreciate it.
Show and teller.
Show and teller, baby.
Let's go.
We're gonna do this. You know, we're gonna speak shop today. We're gonna talk a little bit about Kevin and his journey and how he got to where he got to. And then I think it would be cool to have the rabbi / relationship specialist talk shop and talk about relationships, talk about dating, talk about the man, talk about the woman, talk about what we both see out on the field.
You want to get spicy today.
I want to get spicy today, a little bit of caliente, just a little bit. And I think we should go for it. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Kevin. Kevin, where are you from?
Born and raised in LA.
Born and raised in LA. Tell me a little bit. Where did you go to high school?
I went to a small private school my whole life, kindergarten through 12th grade. I had
I'm from LA, so you're going to have to tell me what school it is.
I went to Brentwood.
Brentwood, okay.
Yeah, I had the privilege of
OJ's kids were in your class?
No, not OJ's kids, but we had the Schwarzenegger kids. We had some of Tom Cruise's kids. I think he has like 18 kids. Yeah, so there were a lot of celebrities. It was a very privileged but a very strange upbringing. Now in my private practice, I meet people from all around the world, so many different walks of life. And the type of upbringing that I had in Los Angeles, like you, with Hollywood and celebrities and very expensive cars and glitz and glam. And it's, as I said, I was very, very blessed. And I was raised in an incredible, loving home with good, strong family values. But then I would go to school, and like in 7th grade, kids were doing cocaine. In 8th grade, kids were having sex. By the time I was in 9th grade, I was going to Hollywood clubs.
Wow.
And it was very strange. It was certainly was not like being raised in a small town, small Jewish community neighborhood or something like that. I got a lot of exposure to a lot of different things at a very early age.
It sounds exciting.
Yeah.
It sounded like it's exciting.
Yeah.
At what point did you know in your journey that you wanted to get into maybe the mental health field or helping out other people in a very specific way that what you're doing right now? So
the reason that I mentioned that going to Brentwood and growing up in LA was kind of a strange experience was that from a very young age, that from 12 years old, I would say when I was in 6th grade, I noticed that the kids around me had very distinct struggles. For example, some of these kids would have more money than God, but their parents were never ever home because their parents were having affairs and they were, traveling the world and famous plastic surgeons. So then these kids, I could see that something was missing in their soul. When I was in 7th grade, I read my first book about psychology and I was completely enthralled. And then throughout high school at Brentwood, I earned this, I was given this sort of unofficial title as like the school therapist. Like everybody would secretly come to me and they would talk to me about their problems. And I was always fascinated. And it was the thing that from a young age up until right now, all I think about morning, noon, and night is people and what makes the difference in their lives, what they've been through, what their story is, how it's affected them, what makes people make the decisions that they make. But a little fun fact, I didn't consider going into the world of psychology and mental health until much later. At first, I was a professional musician.
Really?
Yes.
What instrument?
Drums.
Percussion.
I was a rock and metal and emo music drummer.
Something you learn every day.
Yeah, exactly. And I went to USC and I played music there. And
so you were good.
I was okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I had some small tours and I played on different people's albums and you know, I had long hair and wore stage makeup and all this kind of stuff. And I started playing drums when I was 5 or 6. And that was the central focus of my life. Drums, drums, drums. So people...
Your parents must have been like, stop playing, it's so loud.
Yeah, exactly. My mom, I drove my poor mom crazy. But it wasn't until much later, you know, I was like 23, I had graduated from USC and I was like, all right, what am I going to do? You know, this being a drummer thing is cool, but it's probably wasn't going to be a sustainable future for me. So the only other thing that I really loved and really knew well was interpersonal relationships and communication and understanding relational psychology, not just in a romantic sense, but, you know, with your friends, with your family members, with your bosses. So then I made a complete 180 and went into a completely different direction.
Did you go to school for this?
Yes. I went back to USC, Trojans, fight on, for graduate school. And then when I was 27, I had a job working for the city of Los Angeles. And then I ended up opening up my own private practice. I started in West LA. Now my office is in Beverly Hills.
How long have you had this private practice for?
6 years.
6 years. What has been... I mean, being an entrepreneur is an incredible thing. Has there been any really exciting things being an entrepreneur? Any real challenging things being an entrepreneur? Can you explain to us some of the downs and some of the ups of being your own person?
Of course. So I think there's a difference between being your own boss and being an entrepreneur. I see entrepreneurs as people who start multiple ventures and are good at multiple things and have their hands in multiple cookie jars. And business was never my thing. For me, I am more of a specialist. I am really, really good at one thing and I'm hyper-focused on one thing. And that, thank God, has allowed me to be my own boss and make my own hours and do the thing that I love and get paid to do the thing that I love. So I always tell my girlfriend and my friends and my family how lucky I am. How lucky did I get in life? How blessed am I that I found the thing that I love and I get paid to do it. But to answer your question, there are a lot of downsides. There's no stability. There's no health insurance. There's no training. You have to really be a self-starter and you eat what you kill. So if you take a day off, you know, that's a day that you
could be making bank.
Exactly. You know, or you could be taking a lot of steps back. So, you know, I have to be hyper-focused. And I think this is the case in a lot of businesses that you run yourself. If you're running a business yourself, you really have to be present with it. But in my line of work in particular, it requires a very particular constitution to sit with people for 7 to 10 hours a day and absorb their struggles and guide them and listen. So that can be a challenge sometimes.
That was going to actually be my next question, because you said at age 12 all you wanted to do was help other people, and people naturally gravitated towards you and wanted to share with you. At what point do you say, you know what, I'm taking on too much burden of everybody else, or this is overwhelming me. I'm listening to so many other people's their struggles, their gripes in life, their things which are at times could be negative. How are you able to draw that border take that boundary and say, you know what, I can wake up in the morning, start my day fresh, and still have a smile on my face and still do what I do?
I'd be lying if I said that it doesn't affect me sometimes, especially when you're dealing with domestic abuse or psychological abuse, or if there are children involved, or if you see that somebody is really, really, really struggling with addiction, and no matter what you do to help them get better, it's not taking. That can all be very discouraging. And sometimes I'll joke at the end of the day, my brain feels like a scrambled egg. But there are two things. First of all, I have a lot of very healthy outlets. I go to my own therapy week in, week out, like clockwork. I exercise every day. I meditate every day, sometimes twice a day. And I try not to set myself up for burnout. So, there are some days where I'll have 9 sessions, but I really try not to do that. I try to keep it to 5 or 6 so that it's not overwhelming. The second thing, and I say this to people all the time who ask me about going into this line of work, is it's one of the few businesses where you either have it or you don't. You have to love this. The guy who wakes up on the weekends at 7 a.m. to go golfing, it's not a drag for him. It's not like, oh my God, I wish I could be sleeping in on a Saturday. He loves golf, right? Now, if he's really, really serious about golf, there are going to be downsides to try to turn golf into his profession. There are going to be times where it's exhausting, right? But he loves what he does. And I love people, and I'm endlessly fascinated by them. So I think it's not really work for you. It's work. It's definitely work. And there are times where it's very taxing, but at the end of the day, I always come back to how passionate I am about it. The other thing that I'll say is not all of my sessions are depressing or burdensome. I experience so many wins with my clients in a week that really puts the wind in my sails. What would be an example of some of those wins? Oh my God, man. I've seen incredible transformations, life-changing things. You see a person who's been an alcoholic for 10 years become sober and get their family back. And you were helping on that process, on that journey. Yes. Week in, week out. Being accountable with them, or helping them be accountable to themselves. Exactly. Having goals, having projections where they're going to end up. Yes, exactly. And using all sorts of different tools and techniques to help them get there. And since in the introduction you were talking about relationships, I think the most fulfilling thing for me is when I'm able to help somebody find the love of their life. And I don't do any sort of matchmaking, so I don't mean, that I set them up with somebody, but someone, for example, who is 37 and they've been dating since they were 22, and everything that they have tried doesn't seem to work, has not worked. And I always tell people there's no such thing as being too old for love, just being too jaded, right? People become so down on themselves and so down on the process, and they really start to believe like love is not for them, and helping them. So they've almost, in a way, they've given up, or they've settled, or they've reached a roadblock when they maybe say, I'm giving up, and then they might show up in your office. And do you take it as wow, this is an opportunity? This is not a project, but this is an opportunity for me to do what I love to do, listen to the person, hear what's might be holding them back, and then reveal or uncover certain things that they didn't know about themselves. 100%. You can do my job for me. You just nailed it. But yeah, that is always one of the biggest wins. And in the past 6 years, I've worked with roughly 100 people who were single as a Pringle when they came to me. And haven't heard that one before. That's good. Yeah, I picked it up on Instagram somewhere. Okay. And 93 of those 100 clients that I've worked with are either married, engaged, or in a relationship.
Hold on.
Yeah. That is one of the stats that I'm very proud of.
That's unbelievable.
And I cannot
now,
say...
how does one, and now look, now, clearly you're involved in this process.
No. I was
clearly
about to
you're
say
involved
I
in
can't
this
take
process.
credit
Okay,
for
so then, because one might say, well, look what I did. Look what I was able to do. And we can see that you're involved, and that's incredible.
That's their accomplishment, not mine.
Okay. So then...
But what I meant to say is that being a tangential part of that process is one of the things that encourages me.
So do you believe that anybody who walks in who sits in the chair or who lays on the couch,
if we're doing the old Carl,
if we're doing the
style
old, yes. Do you honestly feel that if anybody comes and works with you, or forget you, but if you do feel, let's just talk about therapy in general.
Sure.
Do you think everybody can be a success?
No.
Can you speak more about that?
Yes. I would love to say that everybody can be a success, but it depends on two factors. One is, do they have the right guidance? And there are a lot of therapists and life coaches and counselors out there who are quacks. One of my goals is to revolutionize the therapy and coaching industry, because I think that the way that things are done currently do a disservice to the client.
Can you give us a little bit more information on that? Not that we're throwing anybody under the bus here.
No.
We're speaking openly and honestly. So
sure. But let me just finish that point, because I really think that both points bear emphasizing. So anybody theoretically could be a success, but it requires two components. One, you need the right guidance. Two is you need the willingness, and inherent in willingness are personal responsibility and humility. And those three factors, the willingness, the personal responsibility, the humility, are things that most people, when they walk into a therapist's door or they sign up for coaching or whatever, do not possess. And it's the combination of lacking those qualities and not having the right guidance that engenders a lack of results. And then people say therapy is not for me, right? But that's sort of a chicken and the egg story. Did you not have the right guidance, or were you not willing to take complete responsibility?
And are you able to see that immediately when somebody comes in and sits next to you? Or if they are automatically coming to sit next to you, it means that they have enough humility, that they are willing to look at themselves and have enough self-awareness to say, okay, you know what? Clearly something is not working here. And
no, I wish that just because they came to me, that meant that there is an element of taking responsibility. Very often that is the case, right? They call, they say, it's taken me a long time to do this, but I realize that what I'm doing is not working, so I want to try something else. And that's great. That shows that the person is going to take initiative. But, very often they feel like, all right, let me go in there and let me see, what this is going to do for me. Let me see if this is going to work, right?
And they're probably looking for some magic pill.
Yes, or they're looking for a way in which it's going to fail. I had an experience recently. I gave a talk a couple of weeks ago, and a woman who was in the audience came up to me afterward, and she said, where's a good place to meet people? She was single, right? She asked me, where's a good place to meet people, which is the wrong question to ask, by the way, and we can get into that. And I gave her like 4 or 5 suggestions, and every single one of them, no, that doesn't work. No, I've tried that. No, I hate that. No, that's not going to work for me, right? And I can tell, to answer your question, within one session, a person who wants to be helped and really wants to look at themselves versus a person who doesn't. Now, a person who doesn't want to be helped, I see that as an opportunity, right? How can I communicate with them in such a way that meets them on their level and then opens them up to help? And I think...
Do you find a success rate in that?
Yes. I think the
So you're able to like convert them a little bit. Not convert them, but there's an ROI, there's a return on investment that hopefully you'll be able to... They're coming in to talk about dating, and then you discover that there's more underlying stuff there, and then you're able to probably bring them out in a way that they weren't aware that that was what was going to happen. And then you get them to focus on other things that hopefully then will enable their dating life to be more successful, I imagine.
Yeah. I don't give up on the client when I see that they have a lack of willingness, or when I see that they're seeing things the wrong way, right? I sort of mold myself and my style and how I communicate with them and how I connect them to meet them where they are. And then slowly over time, I'll stick with them long enough to see if they're starting to come around, if they're starting to realize that this is an internal thing that needs to be worked on, not an external problem. And that is also very encouraging for me when I can see that, you know, the person who walked into my office on day one is completely different in terms of the way that they approach life, the way that they see themselves. They've sort of snapped out of any sort of victim mentality 6 months later. So that's always a huge win for me. But I know we got off on a little bit of a tangent because you had asked me another question a few minutes ago.
So I think the question was that I asked you, let's go back.
So I said the first thing is that there are a lot of quacks, and
yes,
there's a lot of the unfortunately bad
people
guidance out there.
Right. And you say you're trying to revolutionize that or change that up.
Yes.
So how does one know when they're sitting in front of somebody who's, as you describe it, a quack, or is maybe lacking the tools, the skills, the compassion, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, so in terms of the person who's in front of you, you have to feel that they're non-judgmental. You have to feel that you connect with them. It's sort of like dating. You may need to try out a few different counselors until you feel a kinship with somebody. But I think that it shouldn't only be someone who is gentle and understanding and compassionate. It should be somebody who's willing to give you guidance, and sometimes
guidance could be painful.
Yes.
Or sting a little bit.
Yes, it can.
Or put a mirror in front of you so the person can see.
100%. Now, on the other side of that pendulum, there are a lot of counselors out there who will guide you so harshly that they make you feel shut down and they make you feel judged. And they will be telling you what to do in a way that is aggressive. And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody's going to be open to that. So I think the most important thing to look for is the balance between somebody who knows how to communicate with you and sort of touch your heart, but is also willing sometimes in the right way to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And the other thing is, there are so many mental health professionals out there who talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And
meaning what?
Well, they hide behind this this level of professionalism that they teach you in therapy school, which is you as the client should never know anything about my life because it should be 100% about you, right? But what ends up happening is that I sit before you all buttoned up while my life privately is actually in shambles, right? So you don't want to go to a personal trainer who has diabetes and is obese.
He's taking Lipitor because his cholesterol is 250.
Right, exactly. The guy doesn't have to be shredded. He doesn't have to be, a bodybuilder who's in the best shape of all time. I'm not saying that therapists or mental health professionals are perfect. I have my fair share of anxiety. I've had depression. I've had trauma. I've had a lot of things that I've had to work through.
And I know you've shared some things out there, but we don't need to talk about that today. But yes,
sure, we can. But
no.
But the most important thing to me is that I'm never the person who says to my clients, do as I say, not as I do, right? So I can very proudly say, and again, my life is not perfect, and I'm not perfect by any means, but I can very proudly say that I exercise every day, I eat well, I get sunlight, I meditate, I'm in a healthy relationship. I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke tobacco, I don't smoke pot. You know, my life is in balance. And it has to be if I'm going to be an example to the people who are literally trusting me with their deepest, darkest secrets. They're coming to me not because I'm some god or I'm some panacea and I have all of the answers, but they're coming to me because on some level, they trust that I have my stuff together, right? And they trust that at the times where I didn't have my stuff together, I had the personal responsibility and the willingness and the humility to take my life into a different direction. So I have clients who are mental health professionals, and behind closed doors, their life is totally falling apart. And I don't say that as a judgment. It's something that anybody's susceptible to. You've probably met rabbis who speak before enormous congregations, and the wisdom that they have is endless. But then their marriage is falling apart, they're an alcoholic, they have a personality disorder. You get what I mean? So it's not that if you're a public-facing person, you have to be perfect all the time, because part of
you have to be human.
Of course, exactly.
But you also want to lead by example.
Exactly.
And be somebody who can walk the walk, talk the talk, and say, okay, if I'm going to be trying to keep you accountable to your life, I have to be accountable to my life as well. And I don't want to be somebody who is kind of living a false pretense. And
100%.
Right. So it's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
and I think I got a very good answer from that. So thank you. I wanted to ask you, there's a lot of, just to shift gears a little bit.
Please, yeah.
There are a lot of people who come to you, a lot of people who come to me, a lot of people who come, and you say they're 37, 40, 42, and they're not yet married. And what do you think, and you kind of already touched upon it, but what do you think is the biggest reason as to why, if we can generalize it, as to why they're not married yet at 37 years old, at 40 years old, at 42 years old? And as I'm asking you this question, I realize it depends, Rabbi, there's a lot going on. But if you had to sum it up and use one thing and say what it is, what is that? Now, it could be different for maybe guys, and it could be different for maybe women. Women might have a different reason, men might have a different reason, but I wanted to know if there's a general overarching thing as to what that might be.
Okay. So I just released a podcast episode where I talk about the 5 main reasons why people who want to get married and want to find love have not been successful in that endeavor yet. But I'm going to try to really synthesize this. So first of all, to answer your question, we have to break it down into 2 categories to answer this question effectively. One category is people who truly want to be married, okay? The other category is people who think they want to be married, but really what they want is a wedding or a relationship. But those are 2 completely different categories. So there are different answers that apply accordingly. Let's just put aside the category of people who think they want to be married but are not actually ready, okay? That's a category unto itself. And I think we should focus on the people who really want it, and they're willing to take the responsibility, they're willing to grow, they're willing to invest in themselves. Maybe they've already been to therapy, maybe they've already learned with you. And why is that not happening? So very often it can be the result of issues with how we attached to our parents and what we saw in the home growing up. It can go back to the models that were shown to us and whether or not we received the adequate emotional attention that we needed as a child. And in the case that we didn't, even if you think you grew up in a really great, loving home, right? Every child has a different level of need for attachment, and every child attaches slightly differently. And if something went haywire in your early years, then that creates a subconscious loop where you attract the wrong people into your life. And it's very, very hard to get into that subconscious and break the loop. So just the low-hanging fruit to that question is it can go back to childhood trauma that then creates repetitive, familiar, subconscious patterns.
Behaviors, patterns.
Exactly. That happens a lot of the time. You'd be surprised how aware people are of that. A lot of people will come and they'll tell you, I saw this and this growing up, and I know that had an effect on me. Sometimes people are not aware, but very often they are. I think that
because it's familiar, they end up choosing what is familiar.
Exactly.
So they stay in a relationship, or they choose a mate, a potential mate, because that's potentially how their parents were with each other.
Exactly.
And that's what they see, that's what they're comfortable with, that's what they're used to, and they know how to deal with that.
Exactly.
Even though they might know to some extent that it's not healthy.
Yes.
Okay.
And this can be very pernicious because very often, you'll meet a wolf in sheep's clothing. You'll have a relationship that for the first 6 months seems so different from anybody you've ever dated before, but you are not consciously choosing your mate. Your subconscious is sniffing out in the other person a familiar feeling. Your subconscious knows when somebody is going to make you feel something that you have felt your whole life, whether it's lack of worthiness, whether it's desperation, whether it's needing to chase somebody for their attention, whether it's anger that you're used to, whether it is hot and cold behavior that you're used to, right? Your subconscious can sense in another person, regardless of how they present, that they're going to make you feel a certain way. And until you make the subconscious conscious, you keep repeating the same patterns.
The loop,
exactly,
as you described it, will continue to happen.
Right. So one of the reasons is that people hit a ceiling in their dating life. And a ceiling occurs when your conscious desire, which is for love and to be married and to work on yourself and grow, is at odds with your subconscious desire, which is to feel the way it has always felt, right? The purpose of your subconscious is to prove in reality that what it feels is correct. So if the subconscious feels, I'm not going to get the attention that I deserve, or I'm not actually worthy, or people are usually hot and cold with me, or I have to chase for somebody's attention, or I'm better than these people, right? Sometimes the subconscious has an enormous amount of ego, a chip on the shoulder. Your subconscious wants to prove in every situation that what you believe deep, deep, deep down is actually correct. So your subconscious drives 95% of your life. So you have to become aware of this, and you have to see the areas in which it's playing out, and then convert that subconscious pattern into actually conscious behavior. Put it in your frontal
cortex and make it real.
Exactly. And then you have to do something called practicing contrary action, which is extremely difficult, which means that in almost every situation, whatever your instinct is to do, you do the opposite. If ordinarily you wouldn't call somebody, you would just text them, you pick up the phone and you call them. If ordinarily you wouldn't go out with the person who's sort of a nerd, you would go out with somebody who is charming and charismatic, you go out with the nerd, right? Those are just silly examples.
Yeah.
Right? But becoming aware of the automaticity of your decisions. We make 35,000 decisions every single day. 17,500 of those decisions are driven completely automatically without any conscious thought, right? 50% of every one of your decisions is generated automatically by your subconscious. So if you were able to just take 10 or 20% of those 17,000 decisions and make them more conscious, especially in your dating life, pay attention to your patterns, it'll change everything. But these are things that are very hard to figure out on your own. So that's where having an objective, unbiased third party to help you see some of these patterns.
To bring it out, to make you more conscious of it.
And then to hold you accountable and encourage you to practice that contrary action and do things differently than you've done before is invaluable. That's the whole childhood trauma thing, okay? That's like 100 years of psychotherapy in like 3 minutes. But
you did a great job.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.
But, and then there's attachment theory that's a part of that, and we can go deep. But I'll just give one other reason that I think is very much worth mentioning, particularly to the younger audiences. If somebody is 35 or 40 and they're already in this camp, as I said, there's no such thing as being too old for love, just being too jaded. So you can always find love. You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. However, for people who are younger and they're listening to this, I think
younger, under the age of 25, the age, yes.
Yeah. Let's say you're 18 to 27, something like that, right? One of the things that I see so often is that people are single for longer than they wanted to be because the decisions that they made in their 20s have a profound effect on the results they experience in their 30s. And this is something that I do not think is talked about enough.
So please, Annette, elaborate on that.
Okay. The reason this is such a sensitive subject, and I really want to speak about this with compassion, is you never want to make a person feel like they messed up their life or that it's too late. So you're going to hear me say this over and over again. If you're in your 30s and you're struggling with your dating life, it is not too late. I have seen people that everybody else gave up on, and they've dated hundreds of people, find love. It's never, ever too late, because ultimately it is becoming the right person and then God placing the right person for you in your life at the right time. I really believe that. But I think there's a lot of prevention that can be done.
I'm going to cut you off right there just for a second, and then we're going to come back just because I want to ask that on the spot. Is that obviously you're helping people become accountable. You're helping them do the work. You're acting as a coach. You're telling them, quote unquote, do 50 push-ups and you're going to tear your muscles. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful, but we're going to be working on things which might have been holding you back and are going to hopefully changing behaviors and changing patterns. But at what point does God come into the picture? At what point does a little bit of faith, and you said maybe God will put that person in front of me right here, right now. Will God put that person in front of you right here, right now because it's the right timing? Or should the person, how much effort needs to be put into that process first before God will put that person in front of you? If you understand the question.
I understand. Well, I can't speak for how or when God does the things that he does, because there are people who graduated college, they were 22, they were happy-go-lucky, and they met their besheret. And 20 years later, they're married with beautiful children, right? So I can't say that you have to put in X number of years of doing X number of things and then God will reward you, right? I'd be lying if I said that I knew there was some sort of formula that works that way. What I can say with certainty is that if there is something you are struggling to get in your life, whether it is to find marriage, to make more money, to get in better shape. God will only work as hard as you work. And that's one of my mantras every single day when I get up in the morning, right? God is not going to give me something for free because I'm suffering. But if I show that I am extremely grateful for everything that I have, that I am extremely faithful, that I will get the things that my heart yearns for as long as I am a good person doing good things in the world, and I put in the effort, then it's only a matter of time before God meets my level of effort.
Even if I'm struggling right now.
Of course.
I'm struggling. I want to be married. God, you haven't hooked me up yet. I'm really struggling right now. But what I'm hearing from you is that if you're a good person, you're working on yourself, you're putting yourself out there, you're trying to better yourself, and you keep that in mind, God will act accordingly based off of the amount of effort that you're putting into it. And God will see that your desire is there, and therefore I see that you've put in your work, you're making strides in your life, and therefore I'm going to see that this is something that not that you're worthy of, but you can accept it. It's not something you're worthy of. It's something you're ready to handle. Yes.
Right? And there's this ancient Kabbalistic wisdom of enhancing your vessel or being the container that is ready to hold the light of God, right?
Correct.
And this is something that's in the Torah, it's taught in Kabbalah, it's taught in the Bhagavad Gita, it was taught by, ancient Romans. It's like any ancient civilization is all giving some version of this wisdom. It's the same thing with manifesting and the law of attraction. It all goes back to Judaism. It's never a matter of worthiness, right? It's not that there is something that is wrong with you inherently. It's not that you're not worthy of love. It is always a matter of how ready are you, right? This is why people who win the lottery go bankrupt within a year, because they didn't know how to earn $70 million. So if I drop $70 million on your doorstep in a brown paper bag, you are not going to know what to do with it.
Correct.
Right? So I think there are, as I said earlier, there are two categories of people. There are people who are really suffering in their dating lives, but they think that this is somebody else's fault. And I have never seen a person who has that victim mentality suddenly get rewarded by God. I can't speak for the ways of God, but anecdotally, I don't see that it works that way. On the other hand, I have seen people who are working on themselves. They are trying to better themselves. They are trying to do good in the world. They have improved some of their habits, from before. They have dissolved some of their ego, and they pray, and they're grateful, and they are full of faith. And you combine the faith and the gratitude with putting in the work, and it's literally only a matter of time, because that is an unstoppable formula. Now, where people get tripped up, Rabbi T, is they think to themselves, I'm doing everything I need to be doing. I'm a good person.
I'm doing everything I need to be doing.
Right, exactly. I'm doing good in the world. What else is there? Like, when is this going to happen for me? And that's where the gratitude and the faith component come into play.
That's when people come to my doorstep a little bit, and we talk a little bit more about this.
Exactly.
Yes.
So here's the key, okay? And I paid this manifesting guru, incredible business coach, leader, this woman who's written all of these books, and she's like an international bestseller, and she ran I don't know how many millions of dollars businesses and all this stuff. I paid her $10,000 for 3 meetings to learn things from her. And Here is the secret to what we're talking about, which is you're putting in the work and you're doing the things that you need to do, and something still is not happening. The secret is there's something that I really want, and I believe that I deserve it, and I'm going to insist on having it, and I'm going to put in the work to earn it. But I relinquish complete control over when it happens, how it happens, and why it hasn't happened yet. And that is the secret. Right there. You're doing the things you need to do. You insist on having something. You haven't given up on it. You really want it. Your heart yearns for it. And you're willing to work for it. But you stop caring about when or how it's going to happen, and you stop focusing on why it hasn't happened yet. Because when you are focusing on why something hasn't come to you yet, you are questioning God's plan. You are interfering with the universe, and you are insisting
that you're God and you're trumping God.
Booyah.
And we're not God.
Exactly.
And you're getting yourself in the way. There's not enough humility. There's not enough acceptance. There's not enough vulnerability. And we're trying to be controlling.
Exactly. So it's never that there's something wrong with you, but there may be something unhelpful or ineffective about your behaviors. And that's what I meant about, the sort of the preventative piece of this if you're younger, right? I cannot tell you how many people, probably tens of dozens of people at this point, have sat on my chair and they have told me, when I was 26, I was doing X, Y, and Z, and I had no awareness whatsoever. Now I'm paying the cost of that. And that's something that goes for men and women. And it's something that, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Every single decision that we make is going to get us closer to our goal or farther away from our goal. But if you've already made decisions, and I have, that got you farther away from your goal, then the question is...
It's hard to course correct that.
Well, the question is, where do you go from here, right? And a lot of people think that whatever has happened in the past has now rendered them incapable of course correcting. And that's not the case either.
They just have to take some time, effort, work, and course correct.
100%.
But as you said earlier, people are jaded. People are too in their way. People are too not willing to put in the effort. And therefore, it's easier for these people to blame the system or blame their mother or blame society, blame my ex-girlfriend, my ex-boyfriend, rather than taking a step back, taking the beautiful things that you just said and saying, okay, look, if I'm willing to be responsible, remove the how, the when, and the why it hasn't happened right now, and be kind to myself and be loving to myself and realize that if I'm living with God and I'm putting in the effort, then I'll be okay.
Yes. And it's both of those things. I hear a lot of people in the religious community say, well, God is going to provide. Okay. But not if you sit on your hands.
Right. And you can't expect miracles. We don't expect miracles. That doesn't happen in our religion.
Okay, good.
I mean, it does in the sense that miracles do happen. They can.
Right.
We're not going to take anything away from God. God can make anything happen.
Of course.
But as going back to your point is that it might just be that you're not ready yet. And what about the guy who was 20 years old? You just told me he was 20 years old. He didn't have to go through the hoops that I have to go through.
Not in that area.
Not in that area, but there might be other areas.
Exactly.
So stop questioning God, start accepting, and start saying, okay, how can I live my life the way I, Rabbi Teller, the way I, Kevin Nahai, the way I, Greg Berman, want to live my life, and have faith that I'm putting in the work, I'm putting the effort, I'm putting in the steps necessary, and when it's my time, because I clearly might have to be going through some stages of growth.
Yes.
Some stages of being, yes, go on.
No, sorry.
I would say some stages of growth, some stages of awareness that I maybe was unaware of.
Yes. But I want to be really careful about this point, because a lot of people say, I'm single because it's not God's timing. You can't say that until you know that you've left no stone unturned, right? There is so much that is within our control to enhance our level of readiness to hold this blessing, right?
Correct.
And most people, their lives and their decisions are completely ruled by their ego. Anytime you think you are unworthy or inferior, that is your ego. Anytime you think you are better than, superior, screw this, screw that, I don't need this, I don't need that, that is your ego. When you react, that is your ego. When you question God, that is your ego. When you throw in the towel, that is your ego, right? And if you learn how to dissolve your ego, then whatever is happening, you can accept it and you can be present with it and you're not questioning it. So much of the reason that we don't get the things we want in life, whether it's in our love lives or any other area, is that we are resisting what is happening rather than accepting what is happening and then putting in the work necessary, right? So we focus on the things that we cannot control rather than the things that we can. And we insist that something that is happening shouldn't be so. And that insistence, that ego game, that this isn't the way it's supposed to be, completely prevents us from doing everything that is in our power to make more money or get in better shape or find the right one or get the right guidance, etc. There is so much in your power. But the thing that is occurring that you are unhappy with, all of your mental effort and energy is going toward resisting that thing, right? Mm-hmm. So peace in our lives and results in our lives, okay? Both inner peace and results come from allowing the events in our lives to unfold as they are rather than as we think they should be. And when you respond to the events in your life as they are, and then pivot and put in the necessary effort, not only are you at peace because you are accepting what is transpiring in the present moment, but you are also getting results because rather than resisting what's occurring, you are now responding to it and taking some course of action. Does that make sense?
Complete sense. Wow. Kevin, I'm going to ask you one more question.
Okay.
What is the mantra that you live by? You've already explained it, but a little bit throughout this episode. But if I had to pin you down and say, what is the mantra that you want to live by and that you can share kind of is like your final words to our audience? It's kind of like, you know, this is what I stand for, and this is what I would like the rest of the world to know what the secret sauce is. If you can share that secret sauce with our audience, what would that be?
Take complete personal responsibility. Do the work. Choose faith over fear. And accept the present moment. I really think that the answer to every problem in life and the way to get anything that we want in life, including finding your soulmate, can be found somewhere in one of those four umbrellas. You take complete personal responsibility. You put in the work that is necessary. You tap into your faith rather than your fear, and you accept and allow what is transpiring in your life.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, we would call the mic drop moment.
Pew!
Boom. I just have to say, I learned a tremendous amount from you today.
Thank you.
And you are so insightful. There's so much wisdom. And I think your clients are all very lucky and fortunate to have you. And I give you a blessing that you continue to inspire, you
Amen.
continue to lead, you continue to share your wisdom, you continue to make a difference, and you're really making great strides in this world.
Thank you. And I just want to say as a final word that you, everyone, Rabbi Teller, has played a huge role in my development, because 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, when I was single and starting out in my career, I had many conversations with you in which you guided me. You told me about your personal story. You shared your wisdom with me. So you're a person that I endlessly admire and look up to. And I will be continuing to avail myself throughout our relationship of your knowledge and your wisdom. And I encourage everybody who's listening to you to come and meet with you and just get a dose of what an incredible tzaddik and mensch you are.
Thank you. L'chaim, wish you all a wonderful day, and we'll see you again next time on Show and Teller. Wow, dude. Whew. You are a different level.